When you watch this video, I want you to forget who you're a fan of, which driver's your favourite. It doesn't matter. What you need to understand is, regardless of who you're a fan of, you have been lied to. The sport of Formula One has lied to you, and I am going to prove to you that they've lied to you in this video. It is widely acknowledged that Charlie Whiting developed the rules and regulations of Formula One. He did that for a purpose. I'm going to evidence that to you now. So take the time to absorb the content and you will see that what I'm saying is absolutely correct. So just for context, so that you understand terminology and what we are talking about, when we talk about the safety car line that they refer to in the regulations, safety car line 1 refers to a line that is drawn across the track and across the entrance to the pit road entry, as drawn on the picture. That is safety car line 1. Safety car line 2 is a line that's across the track and across the pit road exit. So they are the two safety car lines that are referred to in the regulations. On a motor racing circuit, it would look similar to this. On the right hand side of the screen, you can see where the red line begins. On the right hand side of the screen, there is a white line across the track. That is safety car line 1, pit entrance. On the left hand side of the screen, where the red line meets the track, there's a white line there, pit exit. That is for context of what we are talking about when we're referring to the safety car lines. I'm going to be referring to the 2021 Formula One sporting regulations, which you can all download yourself. They are available online on the FIA website. And I'm also going to compare them with the 2022 regulations, which they tell you things have changed, and I'm going to explain why them changes don't even make sense. The 2021 regulations are actually more valid than 2022. Looking at the contents page, you need to understand there are general undertakings. Read them. That's for a different video. We're going to be looking at Article 48, which is the safety car article. This is all the procedures under the safety car. I'm going to tell you from the start, you cannot go racing with lapped cars left in place. You have been told that that was an option back in Abu Dhabi. It is absolutely not an option. I'm going to prove that now with the regulations, but we're going to go through all of them so you can see. So I've just made them as big as possible, so hopefully you can read. We're going to go through them. 48, the safety car. So 48.1. The FIA safety car will be driven by an FIA appointed safety car driver and will carry an FIA safety car observer capable of recognising all of the competing cars who is in permanent radio contact with race control. Quite simple. 48.2. Prior to the pit lane opening for a reconnaissance lap, the safety car will leave the pit lane and take up position at the front of the grid and remain there until 5-minute signal is given. At this point, it will cover a whole lap of the circuit and take up position. We've seen that again. Before a Grand Prix starts, we see the cars line up on grid, we see the marshal waving a flag, and then we see the light sequence to start the Grand Prix, but the safety car is at the back of the grid. 48.3. The safety car may be brought into operation to neutralise a sprint qualifying session or a race upon the order of the clerk of the course. It will only be used if the competitors or officials are in immediate physical danger on or near the track, but the circumstances are not such as to necessitate suspending sprint qualifying session or the race. So, the criteria that they'd use to throw a red flag are on the grounds of safety, that being if there seems to be a driver or a official or any human that's in peril and needs medical attention, then they will generally just red flag it, stop the event and get medical attention to there as soon as possible. So that would be the first thing that they would stop a race for. They would stop a race if the track is blocked. If the crash has blocked the entire track and cars can't get by, they'll red flag it. If there is a load of debris on the track, and even by lapping around the track and passing that point of the incident, the cars have to travel over that debris, which causes significant risk of lots of punctures and the amount of time that it will take to clear that up is going to be prolonged, they might throw a red flag to say, well, this is constantly a hazard. Let's red flag it. Let's get the cars out of the way so that they're not constantly travelling over that, and let's get it clear. That would be a red flag. The other thing that they'd throw a red flag for is if the crash barriers have been damaged and they are going to take time to reinstate, then they will throw a red flag. Because the crash barrier, if it's absorbed an impact, it needs to be in a condition where it is capable of absorbing a similar impact if a similar incident occurs again. It's got to do its job again. So if it's not capable of doing that, that's what they need to ensure it can do. And if that's going to take time, they might red flag the event to give them that time rather than waste 10 laps behind a safety car. But if the incident can be cleared in the typical timescale of approximately 5 to 6 laps, then it will be cleared up using this safety car procedure. That is standard. Okay, so that was 48.3. We've gone through the first three. Let's carry on. 48.4. When the order is given to deploy the safety car, the message "safety car deployed" will be sent to all competitors via the official messaging system. All FIA light panels will display SC, and all marshal posts will display wave yellow flags and SC boards for the duration of the intervention. 48.5. No car may be driven unnecessarily slowly, erratically, or in a manner which could be deemed potentially dangerous to other drivers or any other person at the time whilst the safety car is deployed. This will apply whether any such car is being driven on track, the pit entry, or the pit lane. 48.6. So these are just quite simple at the moment, aren't they? The safety car will join the track with its orange lights illuminated and will do so regardless of where the leader is. So if there is an incident and the race director or clerk of the course deems that it is necessary to deploy the safety car, they will deploy it. And it doesn't matter where the race leader is at that point in time, they'll deploy it. 48.7. All competing cars must reduce speed and form up in a line behind the safety car, no more than 10 car lengths apart, in order to ensure that drivers reduce speed sufficiently from the time at which all competitors have been sent the safety car deployed message via the official messaging system until the time each car crosses the first safety car line for the second time. Drivers must stay above the minimum time set by the FIA ECU at least once in each, I'll just scroll it up, in each marshalling sector and at both the first and second safety car lines. A marshalling sector is defined as the section of track between each of the FIA light panels. The stewards may impose either of the penalties under Articles 47.3 A, B, C or D on any driver who fails to stay above the minimum time as required by the above. So what is that? That is saying is once that safety car has been deployed, once you as a driver know that that safety car is on track, you've got to slow down and you've got to stick to a speed that is controlled by the FIA. That simply is what that means. So we're seven sections into this set of safety car articles, and it's all pretty straightforward, isn't it? So we're now looking at 48.8. With the exception of cases listed under A to H below, no driver may overtake another car on track, including the safety car, until he passes the line, see Article 5.3, for the first time after the safety car has returned to the pits. So you can't overtake under safety car. That is a basic. Okay, that is the basic rules, apart from these exceptions. So you don't need to put a message out to say the safety car's deployed, no overtaking. This is known. Safety car's out, there's no overtaking. It's like yellow flags. You can't overtake under yellow flags. Okay, we know this. Here are the exceptions, and I'm going to go back to a diagram to show you what this actually relates to. The exceptions are if a driver is signalled to do so from the safety car. So a safety car can wave a car past it. It will turn the green light on and it will wave cars by it. B, under Article 41.1, 48.12, 51.6 and 51.12 below. So these are instances where the safety car will wave cars beyond it. Okay. or signal that they can overtake. When entering the pits, a driver may pass another car remaining on the track, including the safety car, after he has reached the first safety car line. So I'm going to go through this with you in a second so you understand this bit. When leaving the pits, a driver may overtake or be overtaken by another car on track before he reaches the second safety car line. So C and D, I'm going to go through them now. So I'll just read them to you and I'll explain them to you on a diagram. When entering the pits, a driver may pass another car remaining on track, including the safety car, after he has reached the first safety car line. And when leaving the pits, a driver may overtake or be overtaken by another car on the track before he reaches the second safety car line. This is what this looks like. So if you look at this diagram of a track, you've got the pit lane. Either end of the pit lane, you've got these red sections of it. So on the right hand side of the screen, it's got safety car line 1. There's a picture, there's a yellow box. I'm trying to wave my cursor there at the moment. The white line across the track is safety car line 1. You've then got the red pit lane that comes down to here where it's got pit lane start. I'm trying to wave my cursor. So this red section here, during that section, down to this red dot, this dot here, at this dot here, the driver must hit the pit lane limiter. And that limiter must keep them to that set speed until they reach this point here, which is the end of the pit lane. So during this period here is where they're limited by that pit lane limiter speed. However, in the red zone going into the pits and in the red zone on exit of the pits, the pit lane limiter does not apply. So what that regulation refers to is if a driver peels off into the pits, he can actually go quite fast down this red section. And if he's going faster than the cars that remain on track, he can actually get ahead of them during this section here. That's not going to be penalised. Okay, and he can go ahead of the cars that remain on track, or if the safety car is still on track and he actually shoots ahead of it on this section of the pit lane, then that's okay. Likewise, on pit exit, after they've reached the end of the pit lane, which is this section here, which I'm trying to wave my cursor over, when they get into the red section, if the safety car snake is coming by here, a driver in the red part of the pit exit can be travelling at a faster speed than the cars on track, and therefore, if he performs overtakes during that section and reaches the track ahead of some, that's okay. That's what that part of the regulation actually refers to. So hopefully that's pretty straightforward for everyone to follow so far. So if we keep scrolling down, put my cursor off there, keep scrolling down, E. When the safety car is returning to the pits, it may be overtaken by cars on the track once it has reached the first safety car line. So once that safety car gets to that first safety car line, i.e. pit entry, the cars on track can go ahead of the safety car. F. Whilst in the pit entry, pit lane or pit exit, a driver may overtake another car which is also in one of these three areas. So it's saying in them two red zones that I've just showed you on the diagram, cars can overtake one another if they're both in those red zones, or whilst in the pit lane itself, cars can pass each other. So as cars pit for tyres, if one car is faster than the other going in and out because the tyre change is quicker, them changes of positions are fine. We've seen that. We kind of know we do know what's going on there. There's no kind of about it. Any car stopping in its designated garage area while the safety car is using the pit lane may be overtaken. So, if the safety car takes the cars through the pit lane and a car peels out and into its pit box to change tyres, then that's just, you lose that position, unlucky. That's the way things are. H. If any car slows with an obvious problem. So during that safety car period where the cars are bunched up behind the safety car, if a car slows with an obvious problem, the other cars can pass it. That's the way the rules are. Okay. Now we start getting into the crux of the matter. Pay attention. We need you to visualize what is going on in a Grand Prix now. Imagine the first 5 laps of a race. No cars have been lapped. We've had a start, they've been going for 5 laps, and now there's an incident. Nobody's been lapped. So one car has had an incident, it's now out of the race, but they need to deploy the safety car. The safety car is deployed on track. And let's say it comes out ahead of the car which is in 10th place. This is now, we're going to read through these regulations. Picture that scenario. So, 48.9. When ordered to do so by the clerk of the course, the observer in the car will use a green light to signal any cars between it and the leader that they should pass. These cars will continue at reduced speed and without overtaking until they reach the line of cars behind the safety car. So, when that safety car is deployed, if it has picked up the 10th place car, what is going to happen is you're going to have the safety car, and then you're going to have 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th. Obviously, the 20th car is now out of the race. And after 19, you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So what will happen is, and this is what 48.9 is, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 will all be waved past that safety car. They'll be waved past, and then what you'll get is position 1. The leader of that race will be the car that's directly behind the safety car. Okay? They will be, and again, we'll read through 48.9. These cars will continue at reduced speed and without overtaking until they reach the line of cars behind the safety car. So those cars are sent off around the track and they meet up with the back of the snake, so that you get 1, 2, 3, all the way down to 19 in the correct race order, one behind the other in one big line. Okay? 48.10, except under Article 48.12 below, the safety car shall be used at least until the leader is behind it and all remaining cars are lined up behind him. That is exactly what I have just described happens. Okay? So this is a regulation that must be complied with, except under Article 48.12, which we're going to go on to, the safety car shall be used at least until the leader is behind it and all remaining cars are lined up behind him. The safety car will be used at least until that is achieved. So it's positions 1 due to the last remaining competitor, all lined up in a line behind that safety car, okay, with no gap, all the gaps between the same. They're all in a line, no advantages, nobody's gained anything. They've all lost the advantages that they had built up. They've all lost, and they're basically all the advantages are nullified. It's like restarting the race from scratch again. That is what it's achieving. That is what it is achieving. That is what deploying the safety car results in. Racing is neutralized, it's nullified, and it's basically resetting it to a start scenario. And then 48.10 continues. Once behind the safety car, the leaders must keep within 10 car lengths of it, except under Article 48.13. Now we're going to go on to all of these articles. 48.11. Under certain circumstances, the clerk of the course may ask the cars and the safety car to use the pit lane. In these cases, a signal to use the pit lane will be displayed before the start of the pit entry and all competitors will be informed by the official messaging system. All cars must then enter the pit lane, drive through it and rejoin the track. Any car entering the pit lane under these circumstances may, however, stop in its designated garage area. A penalty under Article 47.3 will be imposed on any driver who fails to enter the pit lane when required to do so. Other than when the cars and the safety car are required to use the pit lane, no car may enter the pits whilst the safety car is deployed unless it's for the purpose of changing tyres. So in the example I gave you with the diagram, you cannot leave the track in a safety car situation, speed down the red section, go through the pits under pit limiter, speed down the exit red section and try and use that as a shortcut. That's not allowed. If you're going into the pits, you have to change tyres. As a minimum, you can change nose cone and get other stuff done. But if you're going into the pits, you're not allowed to use it as a shortcut. Now, bearing in mind what we've just gone through, the purpose here, 48.9, 48.10. What has happened there? 48.9, 48.10. That is what the safety car has to achieve before they go racing again. because the safety car has to be used at least until that is achieved. And that's without cars being lapped. 48.12 deals with when cars are lapped. Okay, so this is what you need to do when there are lapped cars. So, if the clerk of the course considers it safe to do so. And this is the difference between the 2022 regulations and the 2021 regulations. The section at the bottom here, if the clerk of the course considers track conditions are unsuitable for overtaking. So this is when it's not safe to do so. And what they've done with those 3 lines that you see at the bottom of 48.12, they've created them as a separate subsection within the safety car regulations for 2022 for extra clarity, okay, which is probably a good thing. But the wording any to all is not a good thing, and I'll show you why. So if we read this bit first, if the clerk of the course considers track conditions are unsuitable for overtaking, the message overtaking will not be permitted will be sent to all competitors via the official messaging system. So this means if it's not safe, you can't overtake. But it means if it's not safe, you're going to just continue lapping behind the safety car as things are. That's the way it is. The safety car has been deployed because it's not safe. They're not going to withdraw it if it's still not safe. Okay, if it's not safe, then you continue lapping behind the safety car. That is just, if you don't understand that, well, I can't help you. So if the clerk of the course considers track conditions are unsuitable for overtaking, well, if you're racing, you have the opportunity to overtake. If it is unsuitable to overtake, you're not racing, are you? Again, if you don't understand that, I can't help you. So if the clerk of the course considers track conditions are unsuitable for overtaking, the message overtaking will not be permitted will be sent to all competitors via the official messaging system. So if it's not safe, this doesn't happen, and they continue to lap behind the safety car. But if it is safe, once they have cleared the track and it's now safe in order to go racing, this is what you have to do. If the clerk of the course considers it safe to do so, and the message lapped cars may now overtake has been sent to all competitors via the official messaging system, any cars that have been lapped by the leader will be required to pass the cars on the lead lap and the safety car. This is the criteria that enables that, though, because you have to meet this qualifying criteria in order to be allowed to be released in this way. This will only apply to cars that were lapped at the time they crossed the line at the end of the lap, during which they crossed the first safety car line for the second time after the safety car was deployed. So what it's saying is you are only eligible to be released to unlap if you were lapped at the point in time where the safety car was deployed, or but at the point in time where you crossed that safety car line 1 for the second time. If you became lapped after you passed safety car line 1, after you crossed safety car line 1 for the second time, if you got lapped after then, you're not eligible to be released to unlap. Your team made the decision to pit you too late. That is their responsibility, their fault. Their late call meant that you then got lapped, therefore you're not eligible. That's how it works. And that is why the word any was used in these regulations. Any car that meets that qualifying criteria is required to be released. It's not all cars, because if all cars don't meet that criteria, it's not all cars. Now, perhaps they could have inserted that meet the required criteria, and perhaps in the new regulations they could insert all cars that meet the required requirements, okay, that meet the criteria. But that word any is probably a better word. Any car that meets this criteria will be required. And I'll read through that again. Once That message, lapped cars may now overtake, has been sent to all competitors via the official messaging system. Any cars that have been lapped by the leader will be required to pass the cars on the lead lap and the safety car. It will only apply to cars that were lapped at the time they crossed the line at the end of the lap, in which they crossed the first safety car line for the second time after the safety car was deployed. Having overtaken the cars on the lead lap and the safety car, these cars should then proceed around the track at an appropriate speed without overtaking and make every effort to take up position at the back of the line of cars behind the safety car. Make every effort to take up position at the back of the line of cars behind the safety car. So what are we achieving with 48.9 and 48.10? 48.9. These cars will continue at reduced speed and without overtaking until they reach the line of cars behind the safety car, and the safety car shall be used at least until the leader is behind it and all remaining cars are lined up behind him. That is what the safety car is doing. Down here at 48.12, we look again. Having overtaken the cars on the lead lap and the safety car, these cars should then proceed around the track at an appropriate speed without overtaking and make every effort to take up position at the back of line of cars behind the safety car. Whilst they are overtaking, and in order to ensure this may be carried out safely, the cars on the lead lap must always stay on the racing line, unless deviating from it is unavoidable. So it's basically saying those cars that are on the lead lap, stay in line, don't be weaving to warm up your tyres as these cars are being released. Okay, we've seen that. We know what that's going on about. And then it says, unless the clerk of the course considers the presence of the safety car is still necessary, once the last lapped car has passed the leader, the safety car will return to the pits at the end of the following lap. That dictates that once the last lapped car has passed the safety car must complete another lap, and it will return to the pits at the end of that lap. That is the minimum requirement. It gives them those release cars that lap with which to try to make it around to the back of the pack, to ensure that line of cars in the correct race order and they're all caught up with one another and they've all bunched up. That is what that is aiming to achieve. Now, when Charlie Whiting was race director, people will have seen that he will have kept the safety car on track, often for 2 laps beyond the lap which they were released on. The sport wanted to speed the process up. It wanted to get racing again. So the regulations were amended to this, where just 1 mandatory lap was given. That was the way that it was written into the regulations to achieve that. But what is actually in the regulations is the race director's discretion, whereby he will monitor where these cars are on track and he will monitor the position of those released cars and see if they are going to catch the back of the pack in time. If they are not going to catch the back of the back of the pack in time and are going to be left significantly disadvantaged, he can have it within his discretion to keep that safety car on track, to keep it lapping, to give those release cars the full chance of catching the back of the pack. Michael Masi, as race director, did that. He did it on 4 occasions. He did it in 2019 at the Spanish Grand Prix and at the Brazilian Grand Prix. He did it in 2020 at the Eiffel Grand Prix and at the Sakhir Grand Prix. Masi knows the rule, he knows the purpose of the rule, he knows that he's got the overriding discretionary use of that safety car for that purpose. He knows that he can keep that safety car on track if he thinks it's not safe to go racing again. So his discretionary use is on the grounds of safety, and he's got the discretionary use on the grounds of sporting fairness, which is to enable those release cars enough time to catch up if that 1 mandatory lap wasn't sufficient. That is what that means. That is what that is there to achieve. It's a simpler explanation. If you try to contest that, you are wrong. That's what it's there for. If you try to twist this around to justify your desires, you are wrong. I'm not arguing with you. You are wrong. That is simply what those rules are there for. You have here 48.9 and 10 that show you, they demonstrate that, they clearly word what needs to happen. They clearly word what needs to happen. And that is that safety car will remain on track at least until the leader is behind it and all remaining cars are lined up behind the leader. So you know what that means and you know what that achieves. And all that 48.12 is saying is, right, in situations where cars have lapped, you need to carry out this procedure to achieve the same thing, or to give the chance of achieving the same thing. That's what it's about. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's how you do it. All the eligible cars are released, and then that safety car performs at least one more lap of the track to give them the chance. The race director monitors that. If them cars haven't fully made it, the race director can keep them lapping. He can look at it and say, well, actually, when this safety incident occurred, the first of those cars that was released, for example, he was already 20 seconds behind the car that's now at the back of this safety car snake. If he's within that 20, well, he's actually still caught up with him, hasn't he? So potentially you could say, well, he's still closer than he previously was when we were racing. I've given them the mandatory time. They've not made it up in time, but we can go racing again. He could do that because the regulations would enable him to make that decision. But the decision, the reason the regulations are what they are is to achieve what I've just told you they are to achieve. So, if the clerk of the course considers track conditions are unsuitable for overtaking, the message overtaking will not be permitted will be sent to all competitors via the official messaging system. Look at this. This is what they showed you in Abu Dhabi. Lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. The official message in the regulations that can be given out during a safety car is overtaking will not be permitted. Lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake is not a valid message. It is not an official message that can be put out during that safety car procedure, during that safety car period. That meaning of lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake is ambiguous. And I'll tell you why. Lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. Does that just apply to lapped cars? Does it apply to cars which haven't been lapped? So does that mean if you haven't been lapped, you're okay to overtake? But if you haven't been lapped, you're not? Does that mean you can go racing and all the cars that haven't been lapped, you can overtake, but if you're one of the lapped cars, you're not allowed to overtake? The rules and regulations of Formula One do not permit that. Hence, that is not a valid message. In their report into Abu Dhabi, the FIA claimed that that is a standard message. It is not. You will not find that in the regulations. They contrived that. They did that to disorientate you. And if you don't understand that, do your research. And I've just flicked to the 2022 regulations where they tell you everything is so much clearer. The safety car regulations now come under Article 55 because they've shunted things down in the regulations and put things higher up. So the safety car regulations are now 55, and they've split out what was 48.12 into two separate ones, which are now 58.12 and 55.12 and 55.13. So the bit that was at the bottom of 48.12 is now 55.12 here. If the clerk of the course considers track conditions are unsuitable for overtaking, the message overtaking will not be permitted, not lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. The message overtaking will not be permitted will be sent to all competitors. So if it's not safe, nothing happens, okay, nobody overtakes, you continue lapping behind the safety car. If it is safe, so if the clerk of the course considers it safe to do so, and the message lapped cars may now overtake has been sent to all competitors using the messaging system, all cars that have been lapped by the leader will be required to pass the cars on the lead lap. Okay, but then it says this will only apply to cars that were lapped. So again, it's not all cars, is it? It's not all cars. Because if it only applies to cars that were lapped, that at the time where they crossed the line at the end of the lap, which they crossed the safety car line for the second time, then it's not all cars, is it? So the amendments that the FIA have told you that they've made that now change these rules haven't changed these rules, have they? Any made at least the same amount of sense as all does. It hasn't changed a thing, but they have made you think that something has now changed. But just back to 48.12. The bottom section. If it's unsuitable for overtaking, overtaking is not permitted, and you'll continue lapping behind the safety car. If it's safe to overtake, the message will go out. Lapped cars may now overtake. You carry out that procedure, which is releasing all the lapped cars that are eligible, and then completing that lap of the safety car to achieve what I've told you needs to be achieved. Where does it say you can withdraw the safety car and the cars can resume racing with lapped cars in situ? It is not an option. Once you deploy that safety car, this is what you must do. There are no other options. There's no option to go racing without doing this. These are the regulations. Once you deploy the safety car due to a safety incident, this is what must be carried out. This is what you do. So there is no option of withdrawing that safety car without having done this and just saying, right, off you go racing now. And I'm going to take you through the Italian Grand Prix of 2022, where we saw a safety car finish, and we still have commentary teams lying to you, the fans, about the rules of the sport. I will prove that. Anyway, 48.13. When the clerk of the course decides it's safe to call in the safety car, the message safety car in this lap will be sent to all competitors via the official messaging system, and the car's orange lights will be extinguished. This will be the signal to the competitors and drivers it will be entering the pit lane at the end of that lap. So, when the clerk of the course decides it's safe to call in the safety car in this lap will be sent to all competitors. You cannot do that. So if it's safe to call in the safety car, it's safe for overtaking. Yeah? You following? When the clerk of the course decides it's safe to call in the safety car, which he must do so if he thinks it's safe to overtake, and if it's safe to overtake, then lapped cars may now overtake. You complete that process. So having completed that process, you then do 48.13. Because if he deems it safe to, if it's safe to call in the safety car, it's safe to overtake. And if it's safe to overtake, you complete 48.12. That's the way it is. There's no argument there. You attempt to argue that, you're attempting to argue based on desires because you want the outcome that they gave you. That's not the outcome that these regulations are there to purposefully achieve. So when the clerk of the course considers it safe to call in the safety car, the message safety car in this lap will be sent to all competitors via the official messaging system, and the car's orange lights will be extinguished. This will be the signal to the competitors and drivers that will be entering the pit lane at the end of that lap. At this point, the first car in the line behind the safety car may dictate the pace and, if necessary, fall more than 10 car lengths behind it. In order to avoid the likelihood of accidents before the safety car returns to the pits, from the point at which the lights on the car are turned out, drivers must proceed at a pace which involves no erratic acceleration or braking, nor any other manoeuvre which is likely to endanger other drivers or impede the restart. As the safety car is approaching the pit lane entry, the SC boards will be withdrawn, and other than the last lap of the sprint qualifying session or race, As the leader approaches the line, the yellow flags will be withdrawn and a green flag and or green light panels will be displayed at the line. Now, in Abu Dhabi, these three lied to you. These three lied to the fans of Formula One. They lied to a global audience of Formula One with what they presented. So, what they presented at Abu Dhabi 2021, because they were in the Mercedes appeal, and this is what they presented in that appeal. The stewards' appeal, that Mercedes appealed to the stewards to state that the governing body had broken the rules of the sport. And the governing body let Red Bull in there to present a counter argument. And this is the counter argument that Red Bull presented. Those three, Wheatley, Horner, Newey. They presented that any does not mean all. Any does not mean all. An utterly ridiculous argument. I've proven the purpose. I've gone through the regulations. I've shown you exactly what that purpose is. I've shown you 48.9, 48.10, what the purpose is, and 48.12 is exactly the same purpose, but just under the conditions where cars have been lapped. It's exactly the same purpose, exactly the same. It's just you carry out that procedure when cars have been lapped in the race. That's all it is. But Red Bull seek to argue that, oh, it's for a different purpose. They'd been competing under them for 10 years, under them regulations. They'd never contested it before. But now we've got a different purpose. Them rules mean something else now, according to those three people at Red Bull. 48.13 overrides 48.12. It doesn't override anything. I've just demonstrated that. It is a set of sequences. It's a set of procedures. You do this, you do this, you do this, and then you do this. If these are in play, you do this. Once this has been done, you then do that. That is how it works. You don't just throw 48.13 and say all the rest don't matter. We're now just throwing 48.13. But that is what Red Bull presented. That is what those three tried to present. And they got away with presenting that. They got away with treating fans of the sport like shit. They lied to you. They lied to you. And they did that because they knew they would get away with it. They know that at least 90% of the spectators of the sport don't know the rules of the sport. They don't understand the rules. They don't understand the implications of the rules. They know that there's a large portion of people that like what the outcome was that was generated. So they will fight in the comment section to try and justify that. You were lied to. And if you continue jumping up in the comment section to try and argue your case, you are wrong and you are a fool. You are arguing as a fool. So they then went on to say that even if all cars, sorry, I've missed out the 15.3, we'll come to that in a second. Even if all cars that had been lapped, 8, of which 5 were allowed to overtake, had been allowed to unlap, it would not have changed the result of the race. They failed to mention that actually that mandatory lap of the safety car to give those release cars the opportunity to catch up would have caused it to be a safety car finish. Hence, there is no overtaking. Hence, the race finishes in the safety car running order where Lewis Hamilton was first. And so they present 0.5 as if 0.5 is valid. It is an utterly ridiculous statement. Yet that is what they presented to the FIA, and that is what the FIA said, oh yes, we agree with that, Red Bull. We agree with that, Red Bull. 15.3, the race director has overriding authority over the use of the safety car. That is what they tried to suggest meant that the race director is entitled to break the safety car regulations. No. What the overriding authority gives the race director is to still follow the procedures, still follow those regulations in Article 48, but allows him the discretionary use on the grounds of safety and sporting fairness. So he can prolong the use of the safety car if it is not safe. If he feels it's not safe, he can keep the safety car on track. If he feels that those conditions for the restart have not been achieved, because after that one lap, that mandatory lap of the safety car, if those release cars have not caught up, he can keep that safety car on track on the grounds of sporting fairness. Masi demonstrated that that is what he knows, because he did that at Spain 2019, Brazil 2019, Sakhir 2020, Eiffel 2020. 4 times you did that, Michael Masi, keeping that safety car on track for 2 laps beyond the release of those lapped cars. Masi then gave his evidence. He tells us the purpose of 48.12 was to remove those lapped cars that would interfere in racing between the leaders. And that, in his view, Article 48.13 was the one that applied in this case. I've just proven that to be absolutely corrupt. That is not the purpose of the safety car procedures. Absolutely not. I've just demonstrated that to you by going through those safety car regulations and what has to be achieved before you go racing. When a race is interrupted due to a safety incident and you have to use a safety car to actually deal with that incident, before you go racing again, everything is nullified and everything is reset effectively back to lap 1 of the race. Everything is reset back to a start where nobody's got any more advantages over anybody else. The slate is wiped clean for everybody. That is what them procedures are there for. That's an entire lie from Michael Masi. But they want you to sympathise with Michael Masi. Poor old Michael Masi. That is what he presented in the Stewards' Appeal. Who was he under pressure from then? Was it Toto Wolff on the radio to him there? Or was it Christian on the radio to him there? What's he lying about? And here, the race director also stated it has long been agreed by all teams that where possible it was highly desirable for the race to end in green conditions. Agreed that it was highly desirable to end in green. Doesn't matter. We have an agreed desire. Does not mean you can break rules. We would prefer it to be this way. Unlucky, if it's not possible, you're not going to break the rules to create that. That does not give you free rein to break the rules of the sport to generate a certain outcome. That's what you did. So that's a complete irrelevance. So, to complete the safety car regulations, 48.14. Each lap completed while the safety car is deployed will be counted as a sprint qualifying session lap or race lap. However, if the procedure set out in Article 41.1c is followed, Article 5.3a or Article 5.4c, as appropriate, will apply. Go and check them out. Neither suggest in the slightest that safety car can be withdrawn and racing can resume with lapped cars in situ. It categorically cannot happen. 48.15. If the safety car is still deployed at the beginning of the last lap or is deployed during the last lap, it will enter the pit lane at the end of that lap and the cars will take the end of race signal as normal without overtaking. That is it. That is the regulations of the safety car. If a race has an incident in it which they need to use a safety car to deal with that incident, this is what you do. It tells you who is in the safety car. It tells you what that safety car does. It tells you what must be accomplished before that safety car is withdrawn. If cars aren't lapped in that race at the point of the incident, before that safety car is withdrawn, what needs to be achieved is behind that safety car, there is a line of cars, first down to the last remaining competitor in the correct race order. That needs to be achieved before that safety car is withdrawn, and everything needs to be confirmed as being safe. Then it's withdrawn and then they go racing. If the same situation happens but there's lapped cars in place, then what needs to happen is once it's safe to do so, those lapped cars are released. They're given at least one lap of that safety car with which to try and make it around that track and to the back of the track, back of the safety car snake, to create those conditions just described. And at that point, the safety car gets withdrawn. They're a set of procedures. That's all they are. And that's how you then go racing again after a safety car situation. They lied to you. They tried to disorientate you. They tried to convince you, and they succeeded, that these rules are so confusing. What do we do here? Can it be this? Can it be that? The purpose of these rules is just to get people out of the way of a race. It's a complete lie. It's a complete lie. You've been lied to. The sport of Formula One has lied to a global audience of 108 million people, lying to people to condition people to believe the fraud that they perpetrated. They perpetrated a fraud. F1 TV set it up with what they showed you. Sky Sports F1 set it up with how they commentated and lied about the rules. The FIA perpetrated it. The stewards and Red Bull were involved in presenting that argument, which is an entirely corrupt argument, not in accordance with the rules of the sport. This is what they did to you. It is systematic. And if you cannot see that, that is a failing on your part. The Abu Dhabi 2021 race was a fix. It was a systematic fix, and it is the biggest global fraud that we have ever seen. Thanks for your time.